Well, let's continue to get reaction to that explosive briefing. Mkhwanazi's allegations have brought the spotlight back on political killings in the country. And questions have been raised about the implementation or lack thereof of the Moerane Commission, which was established to investigate the underlying causes of political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Well, we are joined by the province's former Premier, Mr. Willis Mchunu, via video link. Mr. Mchunu, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us at what I think is a really important time for South Africa as we analyze this issue. I do want to start with this, though. As you watched that briefing on Sunday, did you get a sense that you saw this coming at some point?
Well, good evening to yourself and all viewers of Newzroom Afrika. I wouldn't say that I saw it coming. I can testify and confirm what you have just said, that as long as way back as 2018, when the Moerane Commission report was tabled, they pointed out on this issue of corrupt politicians linking up with business people and being assisted by civil service workers. Now, they discouraged that. They said it was a threat that was going to certainly discredit, firstly, this criminal justice system, but it was also going to undermine our democracy. That was the Moerane Commission report then. Now, I would say that is the commission that actually looked into this matter thoroughly. I don't know if anybody else can do it better than them. But they also made recommendations that we supplied to all national departments in the criminal justice system. One of their recommendations was the enforcement of an interministerial task team where cohesion as well as coordination between cluster departments was supposed to be enforced. And in my view, that is how the political killings task team was formed. We regarded it as that because essentially they were saying you can't have the NPA working on its own, the crime intelligence working on its own, state security working on their own, but the police also working on their own. They were saying pool these crime-fighting agencies together and deal with corruption and deal with political killings. Now, that is why for us, it has been a really confusing why such a team could have been disbanded at any stage.
Yeah, I do want to get your reaction to the disbanding or the alleged disbanding, but if you will allow me just for a moment, Mr. Mchunu, to go backwards a bit, because you were very much central to the establishment of this Moerane Commission. In 2016, this was when we had massive numbers of political killings at the time. And then, of course, 2017, we saw the killing of Sindiso Makaka, whose killer, one of these killers yesterday we saw being sentenced to 25 years. But I suppose I'm looking for the motivation back then that said, if we don't get a handle on investigating and getting to the bottom of political killings, what we run the risk of. So if you could perhaps take us back to the motivation back then at the establishment of the Moerane Commission that led to that recommendation of these political killing task teams.
Well, what is very important for us, what was very important then was that we were a country, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, that was degenerating to everyday political killings. Now, everything had been tried, and political killings in KwaZulu-Natal had started as early as 2011. And by 2016, it was very clear that it's either police were failing or somewhere in our democracy we were failing. And we then came up with the idea that this needs to be investigated a bit further, needs to be investigated by very capable people, learned people. And at that stage, we were very serious, we were very clear that if we did not investigate it thoroughly, then our democracy was falling to pieces, particularly at the level of criminal investigations, enforcements, and prosecutions. And that is where the area was. And it's on those bases that we then decided as the Executive Council then to approach Advocate Senior Counsel Moerane to establish this commission of inquiry. He was skeptical at first, I must say. And his skepticism was that it's very daunting. It's a very daunting task to run a commission, but it's very frustrating when after having gone through that daunting task, no action is taken in terms of the recommendations of the commission. So I think over time, when we have witnessed continued political killings with very little that was being done to curb the matters, he was vindicated. But the formation then of that interministerial task team, interdisciplinary task team, gave relief.
Yeah.
It gave some kind of hope.
And yet on Sunday, Mr. Mchunu, the General Mkhwanazi announces that there was a directive that he believes came from the current police minister for the disbandment of this political killings task team. In the same breath, though, at the end of that briefing, he does speak about how the task team does still exist despite these attempts to have it disbanded. So how do you make heads or tails of what you heard from whether or not that task team is being disbanded, does exist, or has seen attempts to disband it?
Well, it's refreshing to understand that the task team has not been disbanded. But any attempts to stifle its work, because he claims also that some dockets have been taken away, I think that is one of the findings of the Moerane Commission and their recommendations, that there must not be political interference at all. And they urged the state to depoliticize the public service, including within the criminal justice system. They were very emphatic on that matter. And therefore, in my view, if the allegations that Commissioner Mkhwanazi is making are true, then I would say it's on the side of the minister. He is ill-informed, and of course, I'm not in government anymore. I'm just expressing a view that he should have thought twice before interfering, if he did.
Yeah, we're going to stay on the line with the former Premier of KwaZulu-Natal and bring in other guests. But of course, the reaction continuing to come in on this issue. Now KZN Violence Monitors, Dr. Mary de Haas says, claims that Senzo Mchunu has links to criminal gangs may be misdirected. She says the latest information suggested was former Police Minister Bheki Cele, who was in contact with alleged criminals. De Haas is calling for an independent inquiry to establish the truth.
The latest information I've got is that those messages, the phone messages, were actually between Cele and the thugs, the people that are the dealers and the Tembisa Hospital, the police procurement. I mean, this minister is not one to get involved in procurement. I mean, clearly did. If you saw former Commissioner Deputy's Vuma's protected disclosure. Clearly was constantly interfering in procurement.
Now
that's the latest. That this was actually former minister that got the messages and interacted with these guys, and not this minister. Again, I'm saying this is what's now alleged. So I think we definitely must have a completely independent inquiry, because in principle, this was completely against protocol.
Well, she has also criticized
Provincial commissioners
for breaching protocol, saying his comments were aimed at boosting support.
Because in principle, this was completely against protocol. He's one of 8 provincial commissioners speaking about crime in South Africa, right? Which, of course, if anyone does it, it's the national minister, but the national commissioner. But I think he knows that if he's suspended, dismissed, he's got so much popular support. He'll be a martyr, basically. He's playing to the gallery.
Yeah, so we're going to continue taking your calls on this one. But the focus, of course, of this discussion is the issue of political killings as we expand on more reaction to Mkhwanazi's briefing. But just what needs to be done then to get to the bottom of it, and what you make of the allegations that there is a stall on the investigation of political killings, with the general saying that 120 or so dockets have been stalled, in investigation stopping in some of those dockets. 072-110-5584 to send us a WhatsApp or give us a call on 010-594-6010. Let's bring in our other speakers that join Mr. Willies Mchunu in the discussion, who of course is the former Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Also joining us is Mr. Kabelo Kwamanda, former Johannesburg Mayor, as part of our discussion, and we're joined by Naledi Gwadi, who is Executive Director of Defend Our Democracy. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I do want to start with you, Mr. Kwamanda. You've written a statement and in response to this briefing, and I thought it quite interesting that you are writing it as a councillor of the city of Johannesburg, as an elected representative of the city of Johannesburg, but not on behalf of the Al Jamaa party. But you wanted to respond to the briefing that we got from General Mkhwanazi. I'm keen to hear what your initial thoughts are, and then if you think that there is much work that's needed to be done to deal with political killings in KZN and certainly here in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. As it stands here in the city of Johannesburg, we've just buried 2 councillors who were victim of violence, who were gunned down, as a matter of fact. We are currently undergoing a by-election in Soweto as a result of a killing of a councillor there. I'm not familiar with the circumstances that would have resulted in the councillor encountering such a tragic end. However, what I wanted to comment on, and in particular through the statement that I had issued, is the fact that I am aware of one of the gentlemen that General Mkhwanazi is alluding to. In 2022, when the very same deputy commissioner was an employee in the city of Johannesburg as a group head of forensic and investigations unit, a unit that he had pioneered from the ground, had in fact procured certain equipment from Israel. It was brought to our attention as councillors, and we then undertook to engage the then mayor, who was Mkhwanazi, as well as the speaker, who was Councillor Vasco da Gama, to look into this matter, and they did not look into the matter. It then prompted us to go to police and to report the matter so that a thorough investigation can be undertaken. And we did proceed to go there and open a case at Hillbrow Police Station, which the investigations did not lead to anything. I can say with confidence that we initiated internal processes by appointing an independent commission that was in fact reporting to the Speaker of Council, who at the time when it was initiated was Councillor Margaret Arnolds, and then subsequently Councillor Nobuhle Mthembu had taken over. Now, during the proceedings, they were looking into a wide variety of issues and activities that would have taken place in this particular unit, which includes and not limited to the investigation and the targeting of councillors that are in the city of Johannesburg, surveillance on the councillors, just so that they can be disadvantaged and targeted in one form or the other. It was very disappointing because in 2022, the then Minister of Police, Mr. Beyicele, had also commented on this particular equipment that was in the city of Johannesburg, and he said that an investigation needs to be undertaken. Letters were written to the president, letters were written to the State Security Agency, because the equipment is there and we do not know the protocols that they are using in order to use this particular equipment. And we've been crying out for the longest of time. And the police has done absolutely nothing in moving to a particular direction that would see this case brought to finality.
Okay, just quickly, Mr. Kwamanda, because you've said something at the beginning that I think is important. You said you are aware of one of the individuals that General Mkhwanazi is talking about, and then you mentioned the current Deputy National Commissioner. Are you talking about the two other individuals that have been mentioned? So who exactly are you talking about where you say you are aware of these individuals?
I'm talking specifically regarding the Deputy National Commissioner, who is the one that was an employee of the city of Johannesburg at the time when I had opened the case with the Heathrow police station. He was leading a department in the city of Johannesburg as an official, a group head of a unit called Group Forensic and Investigation, which is the unit that I am saying is responsible for having procured this particular equipment.
Sure, that is quite the allegation, and obviously then we need to get answers to that. But let's bring in Defend Our Democracy. Naledi Gwadi is with us, Executive Director of Defend Our Democracy. Naledi, you've heard Mr. Willies Mchunu talking about the importance of needing to 9 years ago establish a commission that would look into political killings. One of the recommendations was to set up a political killings task team that we heard on Sunday by General Mkhwanazi has been disbanded according to an instruction that was given. You've written a statement saying, well, the problem that we have right now is a bigger state security issue. Just put down for us the position of Defend Our Democracy at this time.
Good evening, Naledi, and good evening to the viewers. Defend Our Democracy finds itself really just shocked and alarmed at the allegations from the briefing. We find this to be an affront to South Africa's democracy. It also speaks to a criminal justice system that's in crisis. The institutions and the officials implicated and named in the briefing are tasked with a very specific role, which is to protect South Africans, and it is also to uphold the rule of law. So for these allegations to come out and implicate these institutions is deeply alarming. It calls into question the integrity of the institutions, and it brings them into disrepute. So when you look at also the disbanding of the task teams and the type of implications that come with political killings in a democratic state, there is a serious need for decisive action in light of what the country has been exposed to over the last week.
Mr. Mchunu, can I bring you back in here? We did hear General Mkhwanazi speaking of a syndicate that has its headquarters in Gauteng. And there is the question around, well, his focus as the KZN Provincial Commissioner needing to be, there's an argument, right, that says, well, perhaps he should have been focused on KwaZulu-Natal, but saying that he was called to work in Johannesburg to get aid. I don't know if the issue of jurisdiction for you stands out and is something that needs to be noted. But hearing even what we've heard from Mr. Kwamanda saying, well, this is the level of, I suppose, involvement in unbecoming behavior that he's noticed even here in Johannesburg. Does that speak to how difficult it is going to be to pluck out the rot and certainly be able to get to the bottom of political killings? What's your confidence on how we can do that?
Well, first and foremost, let me comment on the jurisdiction issue. Police in South Africa can be deployed anywhere, as long as that directive is secured from the National Commissioner. Now, from what I learned from General Mkhwanazi, he did not go to Gauteng. He was asked. And he then released some members of the political task team to go and assist in Gauteng. So that was what I understood. I don't know the facts thereof. I'm just talking on what I read. But over and above that, on the matter of jurisdiction, we ourselves, while I was still in government, we have asked from the National Commissioner and the ministers to allow that some police, especially during elections time, when things were hot, we've asked that some police be released from other provinces to come and assist us here. That is why you will find that there would always be complaints that the police who came here were not speaking Zulu, they were speaking a language we do not know. That's because police would come from other provinces where the language is not Zulu. Now, in that sense, therefore, I don't think there is any issue at all at that level. On the issue of whether we can still deal with the political killings and deal them a deadly blow, I still believe in what the Moerane Commission was recommending. The only problem I can see is if departments do not take these matters seriously and do not try and understand the essence of what on each of the findings and on each of the recommendations of what the commission was saying, and then translate that into practical plans. I'm not aware of any practical plans besides the issue of the National Task Team, which I would say was a very good idea and, in my view, part of the implementation of what the Commission was wanting us to do. But the Commission did not only identify problems with government, they identified problems with political parties themselves.
Right.
Because what the Commission said, if political parties are weak on discipline, then their members are going to be rampant, their members are going to violate even their own constitutions and be a chaos in society. So in other words, the political parties themselves have a very important role to play when it comes to political killings. And at that stage, those who went into the commission to testify were very, very, very vociferous against killings within political parties, meaning political parties can kill each other, their members fight across political parties, but political party members internally in the party can kill themselves. And it was the sentencing of the person who allegedly killed, or in fact it's now found guilty of killing Makaka, amongst others. The sentencing of that person is just but one of the issues that were attributed to the internal squabbles within the ANC, but also related to corruption. Because you will remember that the many testimonies were made that Makaka was killed because of the corruption at Mchunu municipality.
Yeah.
Now, if the court found the person guilty now, they are confirming that, in fact, that was the case. And if these matters are not attended to by the political party and government, and not only the police, because remember, we also made an investigation from the Premier's office on that matter of that corruption there. There is a report to that effect. And it was at that stage that I then exited government in 2019. Now, in that sense, therefore, government has a major role to play, particularly provincial government, where these matters play themselves out.
Right.
I would say, therefore, if government can look thoroughly at the Moerane Commission report and try and unpack everything that were their findings, I don't think that they would fail to implement those recommendations in a better way.
Right.
Because it's a holistic report. It's not just one aspect.
Yeah, it is comprehensive. We're taking calls as well. Let's hear from our viewers. So the number to call 0105946010. Bafense is calling in from Rustenburg. Bafense, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well, sir. Thank you so much for calling us. Talk to us. What are your views?
Okay. No, I fully support Mr. Mkhwanazi. The only thing which has led us to be where we are today, before Joe Koran was killed, the one who, hello?
I'm listening to you, Bafense.
Yeah, the one who was blown, the one who came up with the idea when she was reporting about the money of COVID-19, whereby the money was stolen.
Yes, Babita Deokaran.
Yeah, the lady was killed because she mentioned people who are within the political positions. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, Mkhwanazi was killed because of the things which he was fighting for within 3 months of his employment. And then Mkhwanazi, he named everything which he had because he cannot bring the comprehensive information on the table because he had a limited time. So now when he speaks the truth, because in our culture, black people, when we are telling the truth, we are no longer into telling the truth because when somebody is telling the truth, that particular person needed to be attacked because that particular person we are saying he should have followed which he was supposed to follow. But if you look at how he has said that, he followed every channel for him to be here.
Okay. Yeah.
It was not yet.
Yeah. Bafense, thank you so much for calling. Of course, reminding us of the various cases of killings that have taken place that have really concerned the country and gotten us talking about just political influence, if you will, and certainly how tenders, procurement processes lead to some of the killings that we see. We've got a few WhatsApps that have come in from our viewers. Let's read those. Vuyo at Mklabiyalingana says, I would have started my independent party in my area and been a ward councillor, but afraid of being killed. Listen to that. And my family not finding closure of who ordered the assassination. Let's hope Mr. Mkhwanazi will stop this so we can be free and take our wards to another level. Thank you so much for that, Vuyo. Anonymous says, it is sad to acknowledge that our government is struggling with crime, corruption and political killings, just to mention a few, and it is now beginning to make sense as to why we're not getting anywhere slowly. The rot is too deep within the very system that is supposed to serve and protect. Anonymous, thank you for that. Alex in Centurion says, evening, Naledi, I think these political killings needs people like Mkhwanazi who have a stronger backbone to talk about it. More people will get hurt unless the Moerane Commission recommendations are implemented. Alex, thank you so much for calling in for sending in that text from Centurion. We're going to take a short break. We're going to close off the discussion though with some more recommendations from our panel on the other side of this. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition, as we continue to get reactions to the briefing on Sunday by the KZN Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, but now zooming in on what exactly is being done to deal with the political killings in the country and what happened to the recommendations of the Moerane Commission that was set up by the former Premier of KZN, Mchunu, who joins us, of course, in this discussion. But as we close off, and we don't have a lot of time, but former Mayor of Johannesburg, Mr. Kabelo Kwamanda, your recommendations, and I'll give you about a minute and a half for this. What needs to happen now and certainly immediately for us to be able to have a restoration in law enforcement in Johannesburg? Let's start there.
Well, thank you very much. I think protocol at this point, and we are facing very challenging times. As you can see, our streets, in particular Soweto, is looking like an episode from a zombie apocalypse because of the level of drugs that are available in our communities. We have law enforcement. The only problem is the people that we appoint in positions of power and the intentions that they have with the power to advance the safety of our communities. And it is in my view that political parties need to be responsible, and they need to take decisions not based on their party list, or not based on their deployment list, but based on competency, and especially from an administrative point of view, because that is very critical. They need to be impartial. They need to adhere to the rule of law themselves. And when you can see that all available avenues have been exhausted, and the only means for you to be able to garner support in a particular cause of justice, then we need to do so. We need to be radical in our approach, the same way that General Mkhwanazi has done. And I, as a councillor in the city of Johannesburg, who understands what it means to be stuck in the prescribed channels, am in complete support of him. But I would like to plead with political parties to consider the talent that is out there, the patriotism that is out there, because everyone is aware of the challenges that we are facing. They just need to appoint the right people in the right position, because we have a plan in place and it just needs execution. Thank you.
Well, Commander, the former mayor of Johannesburg. Naledi Gwadi, Defend Our Democracy's recommendations, what the president needs to do first. Your final thoughts.
Naledi, we recommend and we call for an address from the president. The president needs to bring South Africans into confidence and explain how he intends to deal with this issue. We need a judicial commission as to the extent of the interference and capture into state institutions. We would like to see an immediate suspension pending investigation of the officials named in the briefing. We would like a restoration of integrity and ethical leadership, as well as transparency when it comes to our policing institutions. We also need regular updates from the president with respect to what is happening in the uncovering of the rate of interference at the capture of state institutions. And we really do call for some protection of the commissioner, the KZN commissioner, and also a general protection of whistleblowers and truth tellers. Without them, we are left in the blind. Without them, we continue with the system of not having clarity in terms of what's happening in our country. But overall, there needs to be transparency, and there needs to be integrity, there needs to be ethical leadership, so that faith can be restored in South Africa's institutions.
Yeah. Mr. Mchunu, just I'll let you have the final word here as to what you want to see next. And I know you've shared some of your recommendations in quite a detailed manner. But you've got, for instance, the South African Human Rights Commission that is calling for a commission to look into these allegations by Commissioner Mkhwanazi. And I wonder what you make of that after the work of your very own established Moerane Commission. Is another commission going to get us answers?
Well, at a personal level, and having thoroughly read the Moerane Commission during my time, and having believed in what they had found and understanding that everything that they did could be done by any other commission. But I don't think duplicating commission after commission is the solution. In the matter, for instance, of allegations by General Mkhwanazi, it's a simple matter. What the Moerane Commission's report says, they say, if there are allegations against politicians, they must be investigated and thoroughly investigated. And if there is some evidence, they must be prosecuted. And if found guilty.
Mr. Mchunu? Mr. Mchunu, okay, we seem to have lost.
Allegation
Yes,
by
there we've
police-
got you back. Go ahead,
by-
sir.
We're dealing with an allegation by a police commissioner, a senior one for that matter. We should be taking him seriously. We should be saying, why is the minister not treated as an ordinary citizen when it comes to allegations against him? He must just be investigated. The other generals, Sibiya, must also be investigated. There is no question. I don't know why we should debate that. I also don't think we need a commission to deal into that. We just need credible police to investigate the allegations that are made by General Mkhwanazi. And in that instance, and of course, you cannot investigate before you've opened a case. And that is where I think some of us and some critics have a point that, yes, General Mkhwanazi has exposed this, but what has stopped him laying a charge against the minister? You see, those are the issues, because it's a straightforward matter of allegations of criminality and they have to be investigated. But as I have said, a comprehensive, in my view, government, I would say government at national level and governments at provinces, must study the Moerane Commission report thoroughly. And they must try and understand it, even if they put together a small task team, that would investigate what did the Moerane Commission report say, because not everybody was in government at that stage. I would then assume that there are new people in departments now.
Yeah.
But once that has been done, thoroughly investigated and translated to implementation plans within the cluster departments, then things will go well. The speaker of the legislature, has political parties that are gathered there, registered political parties whose members are the ones that are fighting out there.
Right.
It's not members who are not in the legislature that are killing other people. It's members who are in the legislature. And I would say the speaker has a responsibility over those members who are in the legislature. They must take responsibility. They must say to the legislature, what is it that they are doing as political parties?
Okay. All
to
right.
deal with their own errant members.
Mr. Mchunu, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for availing yourself. We really have appreciated your time. Mr. Willis Mchunu is, of course, the former Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, also joining us, Kabelo Kwamanda, former Johannesburg Mayor and the Executive Director of Defend Our Democracy, Ms. Naledi Kuwadi, also joining us via video link.